Picture 10 men, 10 strangers, most of them teenagers, boys who'd never left their hometown. Now picture them in an aluminum tube, flying 5 miles above Germany, while thousands of people below are trying to kill them. This is their story. Not the story of the B-17 Flying Fortress, but the story of the men who flew them, the 10-man crews who had to survive 25 missions before they could go home. Most didn't make it. Every B-17 crew had 10 men, 10 positions, 10 jobs that all had to work perfectly, because if one man failed, all 10 died. Let me introduce you to a crew, not just any crew, but a crew that represents thousands. The pilot, the co-pilot, the navigator, the bombardier, the flight engineer, the radio operator, the ball turret gunner, the 2 waist gunners, and the tail gunner. 10 men. The pilot flew the plane, but only if the co-pilot helped him. The navigator found the target, but only if the bombardier could hit it. The engineer kept them flying, but only if the radio man could call for help. And the gunners? The gunners kept them all alive. This is the story of how 10 strangers became brothers, how they flew through hell together, and how some of them came home, but not all. It started in training. Spring 1943. Across America, at dozens of airfields, crews were being formed. The Army didn't ask who you wanted to fly with. They just put 10 names together and said, "You're a crew now." Imagine that moment. You're 19 years old. You meet 9 strangers, and someone tells you, these men are now more important than your family, because your life depends on them, and theirs depends on you. I looked at my crew that first day. Kids, all of them. I was 22 and felt ancient. My co-pilot was 19. Bombardier 20, navigator 21. The waist gunners? 18 years old, 18, and I had to keep them alive. They trained together for 6 months, learning their aircraft, learning their jobs, learning each other. The pilot and co-pilot learned to fly in formation, wingtip to wingtip, 50 feet apart, at 200 miles per hour. The navigator learned to find targets using stars and dead reckoning. The bombardier practiced on practice targets, hitting crossroads, bridges, getting ready for factories, cities, and the gunners. They learned to hit targets while wearing oxygen masks. 40-degree cold, while being thrown around by turbulence. They learned to hit aircraft moving 300 miles per hour, while their own plane moved 200. They learned calculus without ever taking a math class, because if they missed, everyone died. By August 1943, they were ready. Or as ready as anyone could be. They shipped out to England to join the 8th Air Force, to fly their 25 missions. Only 1 in 4 crews would complete all 25. But they didn't know that yet. October 14th, 1943, their first mission. The briefing came at 4 a.m. in a cold Quonset hut, packed with crews. Everyone smoking, everyone quiet. The intelligence officer pulled back the curtain, revealed the target. Schweinfurt, deep in Germany. Ball-bearing factories, heavily defended. The room went silent. T. Stimoni, Bombardier. John Bradley, when I saw Schweinfurt on that map, I felt my stomach drop. Everyone knew Schweinfurt. We'd lost 60 bombers there in August, 600 men, in one day, and now they were sending us back. The crews walked to their aircraft in darkness, each man carrying a parachute, an oxygen mask, a flak vest, their guns, their prayers. They climbed aboard, 10 men entering their fortress. Pilot and co-pilot up front in the cockpit, navigator and bombardier in the nose. Engineer standing behind the pilots, radio operator in his compartment, ball turret gunner curled in his sphere, waist gunners at their side windows, tail gunner alone in the back, 10 men separated by bulkheads, connected by intercom, about to fly into hell together. Pilot Morgan, starting engines on a B-17 is like waking up a dragon. One engine coughs to life. Then another, then another, then the fourth. Suddenly you've got 4,800 horsepower shaking everything. You can feel it in your chest. This thing wants to fly. I looked at my co-pilot that morning. He was 19 years old. Hands were shaking on the controls. I said, "You ready?" He nodded. Knew the truth. Nobody's ready for this. 300 B-117s took off that morning, one after another, forming up in the darkness, climbing to altitude, heading east, into Germany. Our cruise pilot pushed the throttles forward. The Fortress accelerated down the runway. At 100 miles per hour, he pulled back, and 10 men left England. Some of them would never see it again. They flew at 25,000 feet, 5 miles high, where the temperature was 40 below zero, where the air was so thin you couldn't breathe without oxygen. For 6 hours, they would wear those masks. For 6 hours, they would freeze. For 6 hours, they would scan the sky for fighters. The formation was beautiful and terrifying. 300 fortresses, flying wingtip to wingtip. So close you could see the pilots in the next plane. So close that if one plane went down, it might take 3 others with it. James Harrison, you couldn't relax for 1 second. Formation flying at that altitude, in those conditions, it took everything you had. Every muscle tight, every sense alert. One mistake and you'd collide with another B-17. Kill 20 men, yours and theirs. But if you left formation, if you fell behind, the fighters would get you. So, you stayed close, no matter how terrifying it was, because being alone was more terrifying. Then came the fighters. First, a few dots on the horizon, then dozens, then hundreds, Messerschmitt 109s, Focke-Wulf 190s. Coming head-on, at closing speeds of 500 miles per hour. First time you see fighters coming head-on, time does something strange. It slows down. You can see them coming, you raise your gun, you start firing, but they're so fast. By the time your brain registers they're there, they've already shot past you. That first attack, I don't think I hit anything. I just held the trigger and prayed. The whole plane was shaking from our own guns. Shell casings everywhere, smoke filling the waist. And the noise. God, the noise. You couldn't hear yourself think. Couldn't hear yourself scream. Gone, banking away, coming around for another pass, and you realize this is just the beginning. The attacks continued, wave after wave, for 40 minutes. German fighters diving through the formation, some attacking head-on, some from the side, some from below. Everywhere you looked, another fighter. Everywhere you looked, another B-17 going down. Engines on fire, wings breaking off, bombers spinning toward Earth, and inside each one, 10 men. Gunner Alan Parker, from the ball turret, you see everything. You're under the plane, suspended in a glass sphere, rotating to track fighters. You also see the bombers that go down, you see them falling. Sometimes you see parachutes, sometimes you don't. That first mission, I counted 17 fortresses go down. 17. 170 men. Some were friends, crews we trained with. And all I could think was, but their bomber kept flying. The pilot held formation. The co-pilot scanned for threats. The navigator kept them on course. Bombardier prepared for the target. The engineer monitored the engines. The radio man listened for emergencies. And the 4 gunners? They kept firing. 10 men, working as one, keeping each other alive, 1 minute at a time. They reached the target, Schweinfurt. The bombardier took control now, looking through his Norden bomb sight, lining up the factory. For these 10 minutes, the entire formation flew straight and level. No evasive action, no matter what, because the bombs had to hit the target. It was the most dangerous 10 minutes of the mission. When you're on the bomb run, you feel naked. The pilot gives you the plane. You're flying it now, through your bomb sight, making tiny adjustments, lining up the crosshairs. And below you, the flak starts. Anti-aircraft fire. 88mm shells. Set to explode at 25,000 feet, right where the bombers were flying. Each burst created a ball of shrapnel. Thousands of metal fragments, moving faster than bullets. If one hit your plane, the first burst was close enough to rock the plane. I could hear metal hitting the fuselage, like hail on a tin roof, but louder. The second burst was closer. I could smell the cordite. And I still had 3 minutes to the target. 3 minutes of flying straight while they shot at us. All I could do was keep my eye on the bomb site, keep the crosshairs on the factory, and try not to think about what would happen if we got hit. I'm counting seconds. 20 seconds to release. Another burst. This one shakes us hard. I hear someone scream on the intercom. The factory is right there, in my crosshairs. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. The bombs released. 4,000 pounds fell away. The moment the bombs release, you feel it. The whole plane jumps. And then, you're done. You can turn. You can evade. You can get the hell out of there. I banked hard left, diving away from the target, looking for our formation, looking for the rally point, looking for home. But the mission wasn't over. They still had to fly back. Back through the fighters, back through the flak, 300 miles over enemy territory. Damaged planes, with wounded crew, with dying engines. Some aircraft had lost engines. Some had gaping holes in the fuselage. Some had dead or dying crew. But they kept flying, because if you went down in Germany, if you survived the crash, you became a prisoner for the rest of the war. So they flew. No matter how damaged, no matter how impossible, they flew for home. They saw the English coast 2 hours later. For a moment, nobody spoke on the intercom. They just looked at that beautiful coastline. At home, they'd made it. Mission 1, 24 to go. When I saw England, I started crying. I couldn't help it. I'd been sure we weren't going to make it. Absolutely sure. I'd spent 6 hours in the tail, alone, watching bombers go down behind us, counting them, watching parachutes open, sometimes. I counted 23 bombers shot down, 230 men, and I kept thinking, we're next, any second now. But we weren't. We made it. When we landed, when the wheels touched the runway, I couldn't move. I was shaking so hard. The other waist gunner had to help me out of the plane. They landed one by one. Ground crews counted them in. 300 had left that morning. 240 returned. 60 were missing. 600 men, gone. The crew that came home walked around their fortress. They counted the holes. 87 places where metal had torn through, where anyone could have killed them all. We stood there looking at the plane, at the holes, at the missing pieces. The flight engineer pointed at one hole. That one went between the radio man and the waist gunner, 3 inches either way. We didn't finish the sentence, we all knew. That night in the barracks, nobody talked much. Empty bunks where crews used to be. We just lay there, smoking, thinking. 24 more missions, 24 more chances to be the ones who don't come back. But they did come back. Mission 2, Mission 3, Mission 4. Each time, more bombers lost. Each time, more empty bunks. But their crew kept flying, kept surviving, kept counting. By Mission 10, they were veterans. They'd lost their fear. Or rather, they'd learned to fly anyway. By Mission 15, they were a machine. 10 parts working perfectly. No wasted words, no wasted motion, just the job. By Mission 20, they started to believe. Maybe, just maybe, they might actually make it. Something happens when you fly into death together 20 times. You stop being 10 individuals. You become something else. A family, brothers. We did everything together. Slept in the same barracks. Went to the pub together, wrote letters home together. You knew everything about these guys. Who they were, where they came from, who they loved, what they dreamed about. Alan? He was going to be a teacher. Had it all planned out. Teach math, coach baseball, marry his girlfriend Sarah. He showed me her picture every single day. The tail gunner Mike, he wanted to be a priest. Seriously. After the war, he was going to seminary. The waist gunner Tom, he wanted to open a garage, fix cars. Like his dad. You knew their dreams. Because you needed to know. You needed to know what you were fighting for. What you were keeping alive. Not just them, but who they were going to become. They protected each other. In combat, yes, but also on the ground. When one man was down, the others lifted him up. When one man was scared, the others reminded him, we're all scared, and we're all here. Our bombardier froze, completely froze, on the bomb run. Couldn't release the bombs. Couldn't move, just stared through the bomb sight. The navigator had to take over, release manually. After we landed, Bradley the bombardier, he wouldn't get out of the plane, just sat there, in the nose, crying. We all climbed in there with him, 10 guys, cramped in that little nose compartment, and we just sat. Nobody said anything about him freezing. Nobody blamed him. We just sat with him. Until he was ready. Next mission, he did his job perfectly, because he knew we had his back, the way he had ours. They saved each other's lives. Over and over. A fighter came in from below. I couldn't see him. But Alan in the ball turret, he could. He shot that fighter down. Watched it spin into the ground. Later, Alan told me, that fighter was lining up on you. He was going to shoot you through the floor. I saw his guns aiming. He saved my life without even thinking about it. Just did his job. A week later, I returned the favor. Fighter coming from his blind spot. I shot it off him. That's how it was. We saved each other, every mission, in ways big and small. That's how we survived. March 15th, 1944, Mission 25, the last one. They'd made it. Through 24 missions. Through fighters and flak. Through fear and loss. One more, just one more. And they could go home. You'd think we'd be celebrating, but we weren't. We were terrified. Mission 25 was the most dangerous of all. Not because the mission was harder, but because we'd made it this far. And the idea of dying on the last one, the navigator said it. What if we make it 24 missions? And then, on 25, that's it? Nobody answered, because we were all thinking it. The target was Brunswick, Germany, aircraft factories. It was a maximum effort mission, every available bomber, deep penetration, heavy resistance expected. It was, in every way, the hardest mission yet. I didn't sleep the night before. None of us did. We just lay in our bunks, smoking, listening to each other breathe. About 3 a.m., Alan, the ball turret gunner, he said, "Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you guys to know you're my brothers. This crew, you're the best thing that ever happened to me." And one by one, everyone said the same thing. Not because we thought we were going to die, but because we needed to say it, while we still could. They took off at dawn, for the 25th time, climbing to altitude, forming up, heading east, and for the 25th time, 10 men flew into hell together. The mission was brutal. Fighters from takeoff to landing, flak so thick you could walk on it, 2 engines hit, 1 gunner wounded. But they kept flying. They reached the target, dropped their bombs, turned for home. With 50 miles to go, a fighter came out of nowhere. Cannon rounds tore through the fuselage, hit the radio compartment, hit the radio operator. I heard the scream on the intercom. Then nothing. Radio went dead. I couldn't leave the controls. We were still in formation, still over Germany. The engineer went back. Came back on intercom. Chen's hit. Bad. That's all he said. We flew the last 50 miles in silence. Nobody talking. Everyone knowing. Our 25th mission. Our last mission. And David wouldn't see home. They landed. 9 men walked away from that B-117. 1 didn't. David Chen was 20 years old. He wanted to be a teacher. Math and science. He never got the chance. Each one was someone's son. Many were brothers, husbands, fathers. You are not forgotten. Your crews remember. Your families remember. We remember. The surviving 9 members of that crew carried David's memory for the rest of their lives. Every reunion, every anniversary, every time they told their story, they started with, "We were a 10-man crew." The war continued. But for those 9 men, it was over. They'd completed their 25 missions. They were going home. We'd been so focused on surviving that we never really thought about what came after. The ship left England, and I stood on the deck, watching the coast disappear, thinking about everyone who didn't make it. David, the other crews we'd lost, the empty bunks. I felt guilty. Why did I survive when so many didn't? What made me special? The answer is nothing. I wasn't special, I was just lucky. And I've spent the rest of my life trying to honor that luck, trying to be worthy of coming home when so many didn't. They arrived in New York 3 weeks later. American soil, home. I kissed the ground. I'm not kidding. I literally got on my knees and kissed the dock. People were cheering, waving flags, calling us heroes. But I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like someone who'd cheated death 25 times and gotten away with it. They went home to their families, to their towns, to their lives, to people who could never understand what they'd been through. My dad asked me what it was like. I tried to explain, tried to tell him about the missions, the fear, the cold, the noise, but the words wouldn't come. How do you explain flying through flak? How do you describe watching your friends die? How do you make someone understand what it's like to be so scared that you can't think? But you still do your job. I couldn't. So I stopped trying. The only people who understood were the other 9 men from my crew. They knew, without me saying a word. The crew stayed in touch. For 50 years, they'd write letters, make phone calls, and every few years they'd gather. Paul Stevens, The first reunion was 1947, 2 years after the war, all 9 of us. We met in Chicago, spent 3 days together. We didn't talk much about the war. We talked about our lives, our families, our jobs. But there was this connection, this understanding. These guys knew me in a way nobody else did. They'd seen me at my worst, at my most terrified, and they loved me anyway. That's what the crew was. Not just the guys you flew with, but the guys who knew the worst parts of you and stood by you anyway. They were there for each other, through everything. When one got married, the crew was there. When children were born, the crew was there. When one lost a job, the crew helped. When one got sick, the crew visited. Tom, one of our waist gunners, his wife died, cancer. He called me crying, said he couldn't handle it. I called the rest of the crew. Within 2 days, 6 of us were at his house, flew from all over the country. We stayed with him for a week, helped with the funeral, helped with his kids, just were there, because that's what the crew does. You don't leave a man behind, not in combat, not in life. As the years passed, the reunions changed. In the 1970s, they were 10. In the 1980s, 9. In the 1990s, 8. Each reunion, someone was missing. Each reunion, they'd raise a glass to the ones who weren't there. Engineer Walsh Elderly, the 1998 reunion. We were down to 5 out of 10. We sat in a restaurant, 5 old men, and we looked at the empty chairs. And I said, "Remember when we were young? Remember when we thought we were invincible?" Everyone laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. We weren't invincible. We'd just been lucky. And now our luck was running out, not from fighters or flak, just time. That was the last time we were all together, the 5 of us. 2 years later, Paul the navigator, he died. Heart attack, then Tom, then Mike. Now it's just me and Alan. The engineer and the ball turret gunner, 2 left. Out of 10, we call each other every week, every single week, because we're all that's left of the crew. And when one of us goes, the crew dies with us. Today, the children and grandchildren of those crews keep the memory alive. They visit the air shows, watch restored B-17s fly, and they tell the stories their fathers and grandfathers told them. Sarah Morrison, daughter of Lutine Morrison, I never met my father. He died when I was 2, over Berlin. But I know him, because his crew told me about him. They told me he was brave, that he kept them calm when they were scared, that he was a good pilot, a good man. They told me that on his last mission, when his plane was hit, he stayed at the controls, kept the plane steady, gave the crew time to bail out. 6 of them survived that day, 6 men, because my father stayed at the controls while the plane was burning. I never knew him, but his crew made sure I knew WHO he was. And they made sure I knew he loved me. That crew came to every birthday, every graduation, my wedding. When my son was born, they were there. They became my family. Because I was their pilot's daughter. And you don't leave the pilot's daughter behind. The B-17 Flying Fortress was a machine, aluminum and steel, engines and guns. But that's not why we remember it. We remember it because of the men who flew them, the 10-man crews, the boys who became men at 25,000 feet, the strangers who became brothers in combat. We remember them because they showed us what brotherhood means, what sacrifice means, what it means to depend on others completely, and to be worthy of that dependence. Over 26,000 American airmen died in the skies over Europe. Each one was part of a crew. Each one was somebody's brother. This is their memorial, not to the airplane, but to the men, to the pilots who flew through hell, to the navigators who found the way home, to the bombardiers who carried the weight of their decisions, to the engineers who kept them flying, to the radio operators who called for help, to the gunners who protected their brothers, to the ones who came home, and especially to the ones who didn't. To the 26,000 who didn't come home, to the survivors who carried their memory, to the families who never forgot. You are not forgotten. Your sacrifice mattered. Your brotherhood inspired us. Your courage humbles us. May you fly forever in peaceful skies. This documentary is dedicated to aviation radio operator David Chen and the 26,000 American airmen who gave their lives in the skies over Europe. They were sons, brothers, husbands, and fathers. They were crew. They were heroes. We will remember them.